Hello, BookTube, and welcome to your Daily Penguin. This is our tour through my Penguin Classic wall, book by book. We're going to take all year to do it, and lately we haven't known what we would be encountering. And I kind of like it that way, and a lot of you have emailed me. I leave my email on every email, that is, on every video. That's not a link to a merch store, that's not a dummy account, that's my email. Feel free to email me at any time about anything. I hear from lots and lots of people now. The number steadily goes up, and I love it. Just have a little forbearance because I get a lot of emails now, but no matter what the subject is, doesn't have to be literary. It can be personal. Quite a few of you have asked me all sorts of questions about your personal life, and it's my honor to be a shoulder to cry on, an ear to talk to, and maybe a source of advice. Sometimes it helps to reach out for advice to a disinterested third party who isn't uninterested. But anyway, quite a few of you have emailed me to say that you also don't mind that these penguins are now, for the time being anyway, relatively random. And we've got another random one today. We've got a great anthology. I have mentioned before that Penguin does a few things. They do a few things. I'd say it breaks down to four things. The one that they do is the basic thing that all reprint houses do, which is you take a canonical work that is in the common domain, you slap a new introduction on it. Go and commission a new introduction, although the Penguins never come to me for an introduction. You go and find an introduction, maybe someone who will annotate it and put new notes on it, or in the case of some reprint houses, you don't commission that, but instead you look for and buy that. And that you make a straightforward reprint house classic of Turn of the Screw or whatever. And then the second thing is to be more inventive than that, to commission a new introduction, to commission new notes, to commission a new examination of a canonical work. And the third thing that Penguin has started doing much more of in the last 30 years is to canonize non-canonical works, to take non-canonical works and put them in the same lineup with the Iliad and the House of Mirth, and give them new introductions and new notes as sort of a marker for the future. I love that. We're going to see a lot of that in this Penguin Classic tour. And the fourth thing that reprint houses sometimes do, and Penguin does it, and when they do it, they often hit the ball right out of the park, is to create a new anthology, shape a new anthology. In my opinion, they don't do enough work at reprinting great old anthologies. I know, there's no pleasing some people. I guess it's my normal bugaboo, my normal hobby horse on this subject is that I don't understand. I maybe do understand, maybe it has to do with copyright, but in a perfect world, in Steve's perfect world, Penguin would reprint the Quiller Couch edition of the Oxford Book of English Verse. But leaving aside for the moment the question of reprinting older anthologies, Penguin often constructs new anthologies these days, and they are often unbelievably interesting. And we have one of those today. I have quite a few of these, so this won't be the last time that we encounter this. This is the Penguin Book of Hell. And it's edited by Scott Bruce, whose author bio tells us that he worked his way through college as a gravedigger. But he has academic credentials as well. They didn't just go to him for that to do this book. But this is a survey of the infernal regions, of the concept of an otherworldly punishment realm, not just in Christianity, but going back all the way to ancient Sumer. But of course, as he makes clear in his introduction, this word is largely synonymous with Christianity. And this book has so much, from the church fathers all the way to the present day. Different conceptions of hell, different descriptions of hell. I think, if I remember correctly, there's a whole chapter in here just from Dante, just the relevant parts from Dante's Inferno. And an introduction and notes. It's just a fantastic Penguin anthology volume. And in the beginning of his introduction, Scott Bruce makes a very good point. It's a point that theologians and theology commentators have made for hundreds of years, ever since they weren't certainly going to die by making this point. People have been making this point. Some people have even been making it at risk of dying. And that is that no concept, no fictional concept, no ideological concept has had more coercive power on more people over the course of human history than the Christian idea of hell. The Christian idea of hell has haunted every waking moment of millions of people. And for all I know, still does in the present day. And I think it's safe to say that out of those millions of people, very few have actually stopped to contemplate the grotesque nature of this idea. Just the idea of eternal punishment at all. Regardless of whether it's a Christian hell or anywhere else. The idea that you are punished for something forever is utterly obscene. On any kind of ethical or moral ground, utterly obscene. And of course, if you want to trip and fall directly into Godwin's law, I will gladly meet you there. I am also referring to Hitler. I am also referring to the architect and the author of the final solution of the Holocaust. Punishing someone who led a finite life, not every moment of which was evil, forever. Physically torturing someone forever, no matter who they are. Godwin's law bounces off me like bullets off Superman. No matter who they are. Physically torturing someone for anything, forever, is ethically obscene. It's not even something that the worst human dictators would ever have thought to do. And I understand the reason for it. Of course, this is fictional. Of course, this is fictional. That's the ultimate tragedy of all those millions of people who walked every step of their day, who were terrified of every thought that crossed their mind because of this thing. The thing that's so tragic about it is that it's fictional. If you want me to believe that hell is real, show it to me. If you want me to believe that heaven is real, show it to me. You can't, any more than you can show me the infernal regions of any of the other 10,000 human religions. Because it's not real. Because it's not real. No part of you survives the death of your body. None. No part of you does. You are firing of neurochemicals in your brain fed by the oxygen in the blood pumped by your heart. Take away that system and you disappear. You disappear. And I was just about to say you disappear as if you'd never been, but you have been. And all of you listening to me now have the advantage over 99% of the humans who've ever lived on Earth, in that you live right now in the lap of mind-staggering luxury. You can make sure that you are remembered. You can do your damnedest to, anyway. 99% of the humans who've lived in the last 250,000 years have not been able to do that. They have not been able to even make an effort at being remembered. And it's not quite apropos of nothing that I bring that up, because it's understandable. This idea of an otherworldly place of punishment, eternal punishment, makes perfect sense, because that 99.9% of humans who have lived in almost complete anonymity also lived in almost complete helplessness of the powerful among them. They were completely helpless in the face of the powerful among them, going all the way back to the hunter-gatherer days on the African plains. One of the fundamental experiences of those 99.9% of humans has been complete powerlessness. And that makes you yearn for justice. That makes you yearn for an exaggerated kind of justice. That makes you imagine a place where your tormentors don't escape justice, and where, well, since you've been tortured by them your whole life, maybe they're tortured forever. It makes perfect psychological sense why this idea would crop up over and over and over again. It makes perfect psychological sense. Just like the idea of gods and goddesses makes perfect psychological sense, because your earliest atavistic memories, long before your brain is capable of forming and retaining memories, is of having every single waking and sleeping aspect of your life carefully monitored by an all-powerful being who looks like you, only bigger. So gods and goddesses are perfectly natural, and so is the idea of hell. It's perfectly natural, but it's horrific, absolutely horrific. Now, it's sometimes more horrific and sometimes less horrific, and depending on your conception. A lot of Christian conceptions that I've seen in the last 50 years have been one of nullification, that hell is really your absence from the wonder and the glory that is God's presence. That it's not torture, other than that absence being a torture. I would argue that's not much different categorically. Punishing someone forever for a finite crime is wrong. Just plain wrong. It is indefensible, morally and ethically. And this book has all of those later ideas, or some of them. This book could have been 5 times as long. But it also has the extremely Baroque early medieval ideas of hell that went into very specific biological detail about how smart aleck commentators would say, well, you say that these people are burned forever, that they have experienced the feeling of having their skin burned off forever. Well, how would that be? Sooner rather than later, their skin would be burned off. And then what would happen? And medieval theologians were careful to cover that the skin grows back, and that it grows back fast. Some of them even said that the regrowth experience of the skin growing back is itself painful, so that you're never free, ever, from the worst pain that anyone in the Middle Ages could imagine, burning alive. Pretty ironic that was the fate that the church handed out to most of the people who claimed that hell wasn't real, was to burn them alive. So this is a fantastic anthology, entirely devoted to the ugliest idea that mankind has ever come up with. And that's going to make it seem odd that it's a recommend, but it is still a recommend because, A, this is fictional. There is no such thing as hell or heaven. You are an animal. You are an animal. You are one of Earth's many animal species. The fact that you can create a camera that allows me to make a video that allows me to tell you that doesn't change that fact. Nothing changes that fact. You are an animal. You have organs. They comprise you. There's no part of you that is separate from them. There is no part of you that is separate from them. You are a living organism. You are an animal, same as every other animal on Earth. When you are driving down the highway and you see a squirrel burst open on the side of the road dead, you do not wonder what that squirrel is now doing in an eternity composed of spirit squirrels that live forever. Instead, you see that squirrel burst open on the side of the road and you know exactly what this reality is. You know the whole of it, every detail of it. It's only because your human mind, your human forebrain, it's only because that is twisted and wrinkled to an extent that exists nowhere else in the world that you are able to maybe come up with the idea that doesn't apply to you, but it does. It does. You are a living organism, so you are never going to have to face hell. And you're never going to get to enjoy heaven. You are here to enjoy yourself. You are here to care. You are here to right injustice because it's the right thing to do. You're here to stuff your brain full of all that you can. And unlike most other generations, you can also make your voice heard. You can make your voice heard right here, right now. You have the internet. You have almost free paper. You have almost universal education. You have all kinds of advantages for making yourself remembered that 99.9% of your fellow humans did not have. And maybe that they knew that on some level, and maybe that's why they leaned so hard on an eternal afterlife where they would get their just desserts and where their tormentors would never be allowed to forget how horrible they were. There's nothing I can do against you. How many people thought that, and how many little villages in the New World and the Old. There's nothing I can do against you. You have decided to ruin my life, to kill my young ones, to imprison me until I starve to death. There's nothing I can do about that at all, except daydream about a realm beyond this one where you don't escape your crimes. You think that those people thought that because they knew perfectly well that their tormentor was going to escape their crimes in this world, which is the only world. They knew perfectly well that the person who raped their daughters, killed their babies, set fire to their village, threw them in a hole and let them starve to death over the course of 3 weeks, giving them a little dirty water once in a while to prolong the experience. They knew perfectly well in some part of their mind that that tormentor was going to die peacefully in bed. And they were right. Naturally, that makes you want to think about a world in which the minute they die peacefully in bed, they are tortured forever as recompense for what they did to you, because otherwise it seems so unjust. It is unjust. But anyway, the point I was trying to make is that this is a great anthology, totally well chosen, on a horrible idea, but still a totally well chosen anthology, incredibly worth your time to read. Just my only abjuration would be for your own mental health. don't believe it. Don't believe it. Not because I say not to, but just for your own mental health. Be a little easier on yourself. Don't believe this sort of thing on no evidence whatsoever, just because some cultural mythology has told you so. Because the belief in this particular case, there's no, as far as I know, Penguin Book of Heaven. But in this particular case, the belief is only making you miserable. So just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. It's not the same thing as a worry about, for instance, an extinction level event comet striking the Earth. There are 3 likely candidates in the next 5 years. 3 candidates that we know of, where scientists are saying it's going to come very close to the Earth. They make a point of saying it's not going to hit, though. But they could be wrong, or they could be lying. And worrying about that might occupy a small amount of your mental real estate. There's nothing you can do about it, so I don't know why worrying about it would take up more than a small amount. But at least that's real. At least you can quantify that. At least you can say, well, I have lots of documented evidence that cometary and asteroid fragments have struck the Earth in the past. There's lots and lots of evidence and lots of scientific projection about what would happen if a big one struck the Earth now. A little bit of concern about that, of course, because I don't want it to happen, is natural. This? Nothing. Nothing at all. This is just an idea. Don't torture yourself about it. Read the book, definitely, because this is one of those original anthologies that's well worth your time. But don't let it work you up, okay? It's hot enough outside as it is. So I'm going to wrap this up. That is your Penguin Classic for today. A very good anthology, very thought-provoking. It got a review. I actually stuck a review inside a Penguin Classic. It almost never happens. But when they come up with original anthologies like this, these often get reviewed, and I love that. Who knows what tomorrow's will be? No idea. We will reconvene tomorrow and find out. Until then, I will see you later. Thank you, BookTube.